Quick review for this book, Immune. I'm gonna give this book 4 out of 5, maybe even a high 3. I think the author definitely tried to make this information more accessible, mostly successfully, although it's a very complicated subject. Extremely complicated, even as he tried really hard, and I admire him for his attempts. I think he was successful in most of it, but still some parts he was unable to simplify well enough. I think he tried to get into in depth into some matters more than necessary, but I think overall he did try to make it more accessible, and it was pretty good. It's definitely an interesting topic that there's not enough books about. It is extremely complex topic, nonetheless. Could be easier watching videos about it because it's very abstract, but I think he did a great job at making those extremely complex terminology or systems more understandable. Let's see the notes. It's not less important to keep the immune system from going unhinged, which can create serious damage. So we can boost the immune system, but it's also important to make it not go too far, which the immune system can kill the body's own cells. A variety of holes in our body could be used by intruders and they need to be defended. So there's a few holes. We have the eyes, we have the nose, we have the mouth, and other holes, and those are all need to be protected. Cell is the smallest unit of life which separates itself from the outside world, respond to stimuli, it has a metabolization process. That's what basically defines a cell. It separates itself from the outside world, it has like a shell kind of. It responds to stimuli, heat or cold or other stimuli, and has a metabolization process, which is basically like a energy source, or would be is able to use energy. Not all cells have DNA. Actually, the majority of cells don't. Just interesting fact. Cells are like protein robots. That's some metaphors the author is bringing to the table, and somewhat is that they're like protein robots. They use protein. They're made out of protein too. The innate immune system is more dumb and is more like a starter kit, which is not very specialized. It knows to separate itself from others. That's the main component or the main trait of the innate immune system. It is able to separate itself from others, so he knows which ones are the invaders. But it's more dumb. It could be looked at as a starter kit, which is you have some things to do, but you don't have that specializations yet. The adaptive immune system is initiated by the innate immune system and is relying on past infections for defense. So that's a little more sophisticated, a little more specialized, and it's based on past infections. For microorganisms, we are in habitat to settle down into, so we're just free real estate. Parasite simply means something that has a deleterious effect, unlike bacteria necessarily, because it's not always deleterious, but parasitic is usually deleterious. Bacteria can replicate every about 20 minutes, a very fast rate of reproduction. The outer layer of the skin is made out of dead cells. So it basically grows from inside out, and the other side, like most outer side layer, is basically dead. The skin protects the body by shedding, which makes it harder to penetrate because you would be shed out with the skin particles. Alkalinity scale is logarithmic, which basically means it goes by factors of 10. So 2 is 10 times greater than 1 on the scale. and so on. Bacteria already present on the skin is used as another layer of protection where it's harder to intrude an already settled colony. So there's always bacteria on the skin, which basically used as another layer. Because if you want to get into somewhere that someone is already there, it's just going to be harder, and they would fight you back. Either fight you back, or it's just literally going to be harder to find real estate. Some fighting cells digest bacteria while others explode, not caring of collateral damage. So different types of fighting strategies. Some of them will just digest the bacteria whole and just use it for as an energy source. Others explode next to the bacteria, but that could cause collateral damage. The adaptive immune system kicks in if intruders are not handled by the innate immune system, though this process takes a few days until the adaptive immune system is kicked into gear. Some parts of inflammation is hotness, pain, and loss of function, all of which help fighting intruders and making us less likely to be overly active. So that's why we have inflammation in the first place. Main factor is to make us less active and making the body or giving the body more time and space to fight the infection. But the main traits are hotness, pain, and loss of function. Cells navigate by cytokines. That's just the name. How do they know where to go? Immune cells identify bacteria by the shape of their building blocks. That's how they know who's the bacteria, who is not. They have like those receptors they can bind into. The immune system utilizes complement proteins to fight invaders. That is being done by covering and consuming invaders. So when it doesn't work, when it cannot attach to it, I think it just consume it or something like that. Hope I got it right. Pus is dead soldiers, civilians, and bacteria. So that's what happens after inflammation. You have this little pus fluid that comes out, and that's what it is dead soldiers that try to kill the bacteria. Civilians, sometimes it's like collateral damage, and the bacteria itself. The adaptive immune system samples blood samples and spit it out in order to identify invaders. That's what the adaptive immune system does. It just goes around, just takes samples things out and puke it out. T cells are trained by the thalamus and are binding to cells which could go awry. It's not awry when they attach to regular body cells. That's one of the components of the immune system. I think the adaptive immune system. They attach to cells, but it could also attach to healthy cells, and that's autoimmune disease, basically. There are only a few cells for each disease. In case of a disease, the body produces lots of successful immune cells. So usually there's always a few immune cells for each disease. What happens if there is a disease or an infection? The body produces a lot of those who are able to successfully fight the invaders. We tend to like people with diverse immune system from our own based on subconscious processes such as scent. That's how we are subconsciously prefer diversity. Immune cells divide themselves until having adequate numbers to fight infections. Just keep producing themselves until the infection is gone. Antibodies search for a good match, not necessarily a perfect match. With time, a better match is looked for. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Just look for something that works, and with time, with mutations, something better would come through. Neutralizing means attaching to the invader, making it unable to attach to other cells. That's what neutralizing. It's not like the exploding one, that eating or eating it. neutralizing is attaching to the receptors, or and then it cannot attach to other ones, to other cells. Mucus is a layer that protects the tubes by drowning bacteria and viruses. So we have it in the nose, in the mouth. What it does, because for the bacteria, it's a lot of water, a lot of mucus, and they basically drown. Viruses find an entry point and then turn the cell into a virus production machine, which has a high mutation rate. That's what viruses do. They hack the cell and they start producing more viruses using the cell as a production machine. Different parts of the body have different strengths of immune response. So it depends on where it is. So the lungs and the mouth, we all have different immune systems, kind of because it depends on what is going through. While bacteria usually gets to the gut, the viruses gets through the respiratory system, which affects the lungs. So most bacteria we ingest, and that's different than viruses which we usually breathe, and that's usually affect the lungs. Viruses are more affecting the lungs, while bacteria more of the gut. Virus reproduction rate is about a half a day, so it's a little longer than a bacteria, but still very fast. Fever helps the body fight invaders, but it's very costly energy-wise. So it helps the body with fighting invaders because of the higher heat. It's harder to do everything with a higher heat. It's like it gives a metaphor of like running in 100 degrees. It's just hot and you can go as far, but it's very energy costly because it takes the body a lot of energy to raise the temperature. The body kills viruses by killing the infected cell, which basically gives the immune system lots of power to kill ourselves. That's the autoimmune disease. That's how it starts, because the body is basically killing our own cells, which could go away sometimes. The natural killer cells has the ability to kill the body's own cells and do it by looking if the cell discloses information or not. So that's the natural killer cell that has the ability to kill our own cells. And the way it's being done is by looking through almost like a window to see if there is any information disclosed. If there is no information disclosed, it's been going to get killed, the cell. Treating viruses is tricky because it uses our own cells. That's the problem with viruses. It's hard to know which one is ours or not. The immune system lowers intensity as less feedback is being transmitted. So that's what happens after a little while. It just kind of happens by itself. It lower intensity because there is less feedback about the invasion is coming through, so there's less reproduction happening. Small number of antibodies circulate the body and would reproduce upon identifying infection. That's how they know. They always go around and reproduce if necessary. Training the immune system is usually done by introducing weak viruses that induce an immune response. That's how viruses or vaccines work. They train the body by introducing weak viruses. And then the adaptive immune system remembers it. We have 8% of our 8% of virus code in our genes. 8% of it is just genes. Interesting. Just virus genes. HIV hacks the body's own defense, while the virus mutates with errors which prevents the immune system from successfully fighting it. So that's the problem with HIV. It's very good at hacking our own defenses. And also the virus mutates very fast with errors, which makes it harder to track it down and kill it. According to one theory, due to the lack of parasites, the body has gotten more aggressive fighting infections. That's the problem with the immune system is being trained basically to have parasites the whole time, but since we don't have, the immune system gets more aggressive with finding any infection that's going around. According to the author, the problem is not hygiene. The problem is not getting exposed to harmless pathogens, because we live in a sterile environment. So it is a problem of hygiene, but the problem is not that we don't get introduced to bad viruses. The problem is not being introduced to good pathogens, not viruses, but any pathogens. Good ones would be like in nature and soil and things like that. Interesting hypothesis. There is no magic way to boost the immune system, neither we know how to. Healthy lifestyle is the only way. So there is no proven way to boost the immune system. They say sleep and things like that, but we don't know how to. There is, they say, the supplements are BS. And healthy lifestyle basically is the only way we know that could boost it. We have evolved to respond quickly to stress. However, stress shuts down some immune response since it's not needed. That's the problem with stress. We have evolved to react quickly to stress because the more quicker you are, the more successful you'll be able to avoid whatever danger you're at. The problem is that it could misfire, and immune response stress also but it shuts down the immune response in a way, because if you time in stress, you don't need an immune response because you're in serious danger. There's more shit you need to do. You need to run versus then looking for viruses right now. Interesting part about boosting the immune system is that we don't always want to boost the immune system. In some occasions, we'll get through it, like smoking. Sometimes it's good to tame down the immune system, because if it's going too much, that's what happens with COVID-19, for example. In many people, what happens, they get killed by the immune system, not from the virus. It's just overreaction situation. There is no evidence to support that optimism is good at fighting cancer, even though some people claim it does. There is no evidence to support it. The next one is, side note, the author uses effective metaphors to explain complex ideas. He uses mostly effective metaphors to explain some seriously complex ideas, but he's trying his best, and he's mostly doing a good job. Next one is, cancer cells build new cells in areas in the body while trying to evade the immune system. So that's what they do. They're building new colonies, new blood vessels and such, all while trying to evade the immune system. And the last one, smoking seems to tame down immune response, which could be helpful if there is inflammation, because if there's too much inflammation, the body keeps trying to fight it, and there is collateral damage and so on. And sometimes smoking could actually be beneficial. That's not to say that it's always, but it's just an interesting idea that supports the idea that a strong immune system is not always good. That's it for the notes. Again, some interesting ideas here. I think it'll be a 4 out of 5. It is the only reason it's not more than that is that it's still a little complex. Again, I think there is some parts that should have been left out, or be more simple. You don't have to go through all the details. If whoever wants to go can always do some research by their own. But again, interesting. I definitely recommend, especially about this topic that there is not enough books about, or I didn't know much about, so I would recommend. Thank you.